Seems to use today's news conference as an attempt to weather the scandal storm. So the question is, did he succeed? Let's talk. Here now is former Clinton White House aide and CNBC contributor Keith Boykin, Guy Benson from townhall.com, and CNBC contributor Robert Costa of the National Review. Robert Costa, I want to start with you. This is insane. Later in the day, I take it after the press conference, they appointed Daniel Werfel. He is the controller of the Office of Management and Budget. And I'm not picking on this guy, Werfel, because people say good things about him. He served under W. Bush and Obama. But here's the thing, Bob Costa. He's only going to be there for 4 months. The appointment takes effect May 22nd, and he's going to serve through the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. 4 months. He's going to clean up the corruption and the politicking of the IRS in 4 months on his own? That is the nuttiest thing I ever heard.
Congress doesn't believe it either, Larry. In fact, the president's maneuvers today at the press conference are really reshuffling the deck chairs on the sinking IRS ship. You saw Dave Campen in an interview with CNBC talk about how tomorrow's hearing is the real story. And my takeaway from the press conference is that the president is on the ropes. For the first time in 5 years, he's really feeling the heat from Congress, and he knows he has to act. I just think he's stumped today a little bit to strike the right tone.
And, you know, Keith Boykin, of course they should have a special counsel. Of course. Because this guy, Werfel, first of all, he's only there 4 months, as I just said. Second of all, he's going to have his hands full running whatever he thinks he's going to run in 4 months. You need a separate, independent, special counsel to find out what happened, how it happened, and what needs to be done to prevent it and to have heads rolled. This couldn't possibly be done by a part-time guy in 4 months. I don't get it, Keith.
Well, we have an Inspector General's report, Larry, which is the reason why we know about this in the first place. That's actually the basis for the reform that needs to take place. And the president, I think, was very strong today. I'm going to disagree with Robert, who I normally agree with, actually. I think that the president is very strong today. I don't think he was on the ropes at all. In fact, I think what we've seen in the past 2 days is a case study in effective crisis management from this White House. They've turned this story around from what was a sinking ship maybe 2 days ago, but is now they've gotten behind this story. They've gotten in front of the story, rather, and I think that they've done effectively in terms of the clear communication. They put the president out there 2 or 3 times this week. They've done effective in terms of getting emails out there on the Benghazi story, getting the information out there on the IRS story, and also effectively in taking swift, decisive action on this IRS story, getting rid of Stephen Miller, appointing a new acting commissioner. He's just an acting IRS commissioner.
For 4 months!
And, well,
nobody is going to believe any that has any effectiveness.
He's only an acting commissioner.
I got to go to you on this because this makes no sense. All right, Keith is doing the best he can to spin this, but the reality is 4 months, you cannot put a guy in. The second reality is the Inspector General's report is, some people think it's okay, other people are questioning it. You need a special counsel to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. You also need a special counsel to make recommendations that this won't happen again. The IG report doesn't do that. That's why I think today's actions, Guy, were just back-paddling by the president. There's nothing going on here.
Well, all respect to my friend Keith, I think he's living in an alternate universe if he watches today's press conference and thinks that the president performed ably and made things better for himself. Just the opposite. If we're just focusing on one of the scandals, the IRS scandal, he, as you mentioned, declined a special prosecutor, and the IG report is, I think, the beginning and has some flaws. For instance, it said there was no political bias. Oops.
Right.
So that's just point one on the IRS thing. He also said, and I thought this was so interesting from the president, earlier today, he expressed his confidence in Attorney General Eric Holder, who in yesterday's testimony said he didn't know anything about anything, and he said, oh, we're going to have a criminal investigation of the IRS, but the one thing I do know is that this doesn't touch the White House. So there's an Attorney General with a conclusion that he has already reached about the White House's involvement.
Can I just correct you, Guy? The Attorney General did not say he doesn't know anything about anything. He recused himself. He recused himself from the Justice Department investigation into the AP controversy.
This is all inside baseball.
Has absolutely nothing to do with the IRS controversy.
No, but he talked about both. Keith, I'm trying to keep the scandals straight here. I know it's tough because there's so many of them, but I'm trying to keep them straight. And yes, he said he recused himself on the AP thing, on that whole whole mess with the DOJ, but he also couldn't remember when he recused himself. It wasn't in writing, and he didn't know which of his deputies took over the case.
And again,
that's amazing.
You're trying to shoehorn this whole issue about the AP issue into the question of the IRS, which is what Larry
not at
asked
all.
us
I'm
about.
separating the two.
The problem I think for the GOP, Larry, is it's a danger of overreach. They did this in 1998 with the Monica Lewinsky thing on Bill Clinton.
I got to disagree with Keith. I just walked over here.
I got to say, I don't think this is like 1998 at all. I think that the leaders of the IRS lied through their teeth, and that's going to be shown with clear proof in these oversight hearings. And the one place I do agree with the Attorney General is there are going to be criminal prosecutions, that's for sure. But Bob Costa, I want to put something else into the witch's brew here. This Wall Street Journal editorial this morning, I'm sure you saw it. Chuck Schumer and Max Baucus and a bunch of other Senate Democrats wrote a letter to the former IRS Commissioner Schulman saying that they should go slow, essentially do what they did regarding conservative applications for tax-exempt status. This is Schumer and Baucus. I'm sorry John Harwood didn't ask Baucus about that, but that was the seed that was planted right at the beginning. And what happened? It got politicized. What happened? These bureaucrats did what the senators wanted them to do, Bob Costa.
That's right. We can debate the theatrics of the presidential press conference all we want. But the problem for the Democrats and the president is that this was going on for years. There's documents, freedom of information requests that have been done by Congress, been part of these investigations about Democrats putting pressure on Tea Party groups and conservative organizations. The more this evidence comes out and unfolds, it's going to keep hurting the president. So he can be as smooth as he can be at a press conference. But these things are going to make this the summer of scandal in Washington.
But see, what they said was, hang on a second, what they said was, Bob Costa, the bureaucrats, I mean, I've actually read this. They said we were doing what we thought they wanted us to do.
Right.
They,
if congressional Democrats were pressuring the bureaucrats, that's the big problem.
That's exactly how this works in the federal bureaucracy. And I think that's one of the key factors. And I think it filtered in to the leadership, too, with Miller and Schumer and others. I think it filtered right down.
The IRS is not some agency on an island. The IRS is influenced by the broader political culture. That's the argument Republicans are making. They may not have been directed by the president himself, but they're part of the whole apparatus in Washington.
That's the big issue. Of course they weren't directed by the president himself. And he only appoints two people in the entire IRS. Commissioner and the General Counsel. But here's the big problem about GOP overreach again. This whole criticism, this whole outrage, this feigned outrage about the IRS, which is a legitimate scandal, I will admit, would make much more sense and would have much more credibility coming from the GOP if they had said anything when the IRS was targeting the NAACP or targeting Greenpeace or targeting gay and lesbian organizations. But no, they said nothing then. And now, because the IRS is making a legitimate inquiry into 501c4s, suddenly it's a scandal about
how we're talking about Republican overreach.
I got to stop. I got to get out. One thing you said, Keith, I completely agree. The IRS is a scandal. That you are completely right, and that's not going away. And these hearings that are coming up tomorrow and next week, oh my gosh, you wait and see. Stuff is going to surface, going to make your head turn, maybe your stomach too. Bob Costa, thank you. Keith Boykin, Guy Benson, we appreciate it very much. Now, folks, President